Hello, everyone. We are back with another brand new episode of Chatting with Asta. Today on my show, I have April Consalo, a actress and filmmaker, and she's currently promoting Like Subscribe, which is her directorial debut. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things today, and I'm really excited to have her on. So I hope you enjoy. And now that I mention it, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you want to continue to listen to new episodes. Well, intros aside, welcome April to the show.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
yeah, so happy to see you. I literally met you like 3 days before I moved from New York, so this is such a nice way to refresh.
I know. I was like, hi, it's so nice to meet you. Maybe I will see you again. Maybe not. So it's really great to see you in this context and get to talk about a lot of fun stuff that we both care a lot about.
Yeah. So first off, let me find out from you and let's share with our listeners, how did you get your start in the arts? Like, what was your origin story? What made you want to be an artist?
So basically, I've wanted to be an actor for as long as I can remember. There was this like local newspaper that came to my elementary school and interviewed kids on like what they wanted to be when they grew up. And it says, April Consalo, 8, says, I have always wanted to be an actor. And my mom showed me that newspaper clipping the other day, and I was like, wow, I'm committed.
Yeah.
I really, it's just been forever. But then in high school, I got the chance to go to a performing arts high school in Florida where I grew up. And that's where I really started actually doing it for the first time. We got to take an entire academic course load and then like an entire artistic course load. So I'd be like French 2, and then musical theater, and then biology, and then acting 3. So I did it a lot there, and I decided that I wanted to go to college for it, which there wasn't a lot of like precedent for that around me. The town I grew up in is very small. It's very um, conservative. It's very like, you don't really leave this place sort of vibes. And I did and pursued something that most people weren't pursuing.
Yeah.
And after I graduated, I just moved to New York and decided that I was going to try to do it like to the fullest of my ability.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, the pandemic hit.
Wow.
Which was, super exciting, great for everyone's careers.
Character building. It was character building.
Yeah, exactly. I actually feel like I learned so much during that time. I took a lot of online classes, learned the whole Zoom thing, and I read a lot and watched a lot, and took like personally educated myself.
Yes.
And yeah, it's only been since the pandemic kind of eased a little bit that I've been able to pursue it as an adult and with all that education.
Yeah. It's crazy because I think in some ways the pandemic like both simultaneously halted people's careers, but also like in my experience, I feel like it actually unlocked things that would normally take maybe decades to learn, like the cultivation of oneself, right? Like
Yeah.
giving yourself permission to learn yourself, because I've been in this business professionally for about a decade, and the past 2 years I've learned so much more about myself from this isolation period than I would have if I was like frantically trying to impress upon others what I thought I was. Like I actually got to know myself.
Yes, and the type of art that you want to be
Yeah.
involved in.
Yes.
Whereas before, obviously, I was just like, I'm still in very many ways pursuing anything that will take me. But but also just thinking like, what do I want to spend my time doing? It's not like just doing art, which
Yeah.
is what I thought it was for so long. Like I have such a higher standard for what I actually want to be involved in,
Yeah.
what I want my name attached to,
Yeah.
the stories that connect with me.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of us had to face a lot of really hard truths about ourselves, and and just like make the decision of, do we want to keep doing this at
Yeah.
the end of all of this self-reflection?
Yeah.
And I realized I still did,
Yeah.
and I still do. Yeah.
I mean, that's a perfect example of how this time has allowed someone like you to make that culmination so much quicker, because I feel like when you came from a very arts centered education background. I went
Hmm.
to a conservatory, so I also did a BFA, and like it's such a weird mindset because you get to a point where you don't even know why you're doing something.
Yeah.
You
Because
have,
everyone around you is just doing it.
yeah, you have a list. You can make the logic of it, but you kind of lose the soul of it, and you also lose the uniqueness of what you are. So like everyone is super talented. Everyone can do, ballet, yoga, acrobatics. They can speak multiple languages, and you just are like, but why? Like,
Yeah. For what?
yeah, and it's good because I remember so for our listeners, the context in which I know you is because you just worked with my husband on a very exciting feature, which we'll touch a little bit on. And I can't wait for people to talk about it. So we'll all have you like give a little context, spoiler free context, but it
Mm-hmm.
it was such a the role that you have to do is so it's so perfect for what you just said, because you have a certain like commercial look about you, like a certain like femme presenting, like very like
Yeah.
beat type of thing. And this, I think, really catapults you into a category that doesn't have you just swimming in that victim of the industry, where you're not like being forced to play like overly damselly types or like,
Yeah.
shell types. You get to like, I mean, tell us
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about this mystery project.
Um, well, I can, it's called Cannibal Mukbang.
Okay.
So, which is the most brilliant title. When I saw it on Actors Access, I was like, yes,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
absolutely.
Please take me. Please let me audition for this. And it's about, I'm trying to keep it as spoiler free as possible, but the
I
name
know.
is Cannibal Mukbang. Um, so it's a horror romance, and I play a young woman who falls in love with this very kind of average guy, and I shake up his life. Sort of the classic manic pixie dream girl trope, but it definitely gets turned on its head,
Yes.
and she is not all that she seems.
Yes.
And it really goes, a lot of the themes deal with like the oppression of women and the ways that women both make themselves safe and also choose danger
Mhm.
as a, or try to make themselves safe and try to choose danger as like a reaction to the
Yeah.
way that men treat them.
Yes. And like something that I loved about, because my experience of your project is through the eyes of my, cis white male husband. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's like it's fascinating because, first of all, you know, he had nothing but amazing things to say about you, like, which
Oh, thank you
is
so much.
always so great because like, sometimes you work with people and they're talented, but they're not necessarily people that either fully resonate with what it is that they're playing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because you can have an actor who has completely different viewpoint, but it's just convincing physically and can perform it. But, he's
Right.
really threw yourself into it. And you have to physically and emotionally put yourself in such a vulnerable position in order to elicit that female rage in this.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad that you had such a capable director, Amy.
Oh,
And
yeah. Amy's literally a genius. And she just like, she focuses, I mean, she also wrote it,
yes,
which it's one of the best scripts I've ever read
yes,
personally. And she really had such a clear vision for what she wanted this character to be like and what she wanted the whole movie to feel and look like. And it was really cool to work with someone that had such a strong vision, but was also so open to collaborating
yeah,
and would listen to what I had to say about Ash, my character.
yeah,
And it just felt like exactly what I'd always been hoping for and looking
yeah,
for. in an experience, like I always dreamt of working with like a not male director. I had only done 1.5 features prior to this, and they were both with male directors, and um, they were great,
Yeah.
but there's something about like connecting with someone on a script that focuses on like female rage,
Yes.
and working with a woman director, a woman writer, like it really just, it was so satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
And
amazing.
you got to have a intimacy coordinator and like
Hmm.
stunts, and I mean, God, I can't wait for everybody to see this and like re-listen to this interview, understanding like all about what you are. But like I am just I knowing that this industry will like really try and take advantage of women. It's so lucky that you got to be part of something so visceral with a woman who will make sure that it's framed in a way that doesn't just objectify you or ask you to become like this talking point for, I don't know, pretending that you're okay with being exploited. I don't know. It's
Yeah, I think that we talked a lot about exploitation because my character does use her appearance
yeah,
to achieve some of the things she wants to get.
yeah,
Um, and we talked about how like Ash isn't the protagonist of this
yes,
movie.
yeah,
She is the inciting incident, or she's really like every incident.
yeah,
Um, and how a lot of the movie we are watching her through this man's eyes.
hmm,
And so we had to have a lot of conversations about like, okay, you know, in this scene the camera will be objectifying you, but it's for this point. It's
yeah,
not just gratuitous.
right.
And I was like, yeah, sure, like close up on my butt. That's fine. Hopefully that's not a spoiler. I don't know.
No, no, it's not, because it is like the opening frame to Lost in Translation. So like
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's a feminine gaze. But
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to go to the wrap party, and I got to see
Mhm.
the teaser sizzle separate from like what everyone else gets to see at some point. But it was so interesting seeing those shots, because I feel like even though they were exploitative or objectifying, there was a goal. And I feel like
Yeah.
there's this certain kind of gaze that comes from a male exploitation angle, where it's literally like, instead of like um I don't know if I'm going to sound objectifying, instead of like looking at a woman and being like, this is this beauteous like figure head on, a male will like imagine like a certain
Yes.
insertion, or like because the shots are designed, I'm sorry listeners, for a spank bang. Like it's like the
Yeah.
so instead of like displaying the beautiful female figure and like likening it to like a peach or something, you are displaying
Yeah.
the way in which you wish to corrupt the people.
Approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's there's like this weird and sometimes it is this intangible thing,
Yeah.
but you can feel it, just like the desire to encroach
Yes.
upon the
Yes.
beauty as opposed to just
Seeing it.
witnessing it.
Yes.
um yeah, and I think that we like never crossed that line. I always felt very comfortable. Also, like our intimacy coordinator Kennedy was brilliant and so on it, and just we had a lot of really deep discussions, and me and my co-star Nate had a lot of discussions beforehand about like the intimacy and the themes, and we were both on the same page about that. So the whole time I just felt really safe and
Yeah.
supported, and it's like it was really cool for me. It felt like empowering.
Mhm.
And I know that there's a lot of discussion about feeling empowered versus having power
Yes.
and
Yeah.
how that can be a different thing.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to sexuality in women and femmes. And I felt both empowered and like I had the power.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I just want to give a shout out to Harrison, he visited.
Harrison.
Yeah, great. I mean, talking about the gaze and the like the viewpoint, like he was able to communicate with Amy and get those shots. But
Hmm.
it's interesting you say that because I feel like so often in the experience of like especially horror exploitation, what ends up happening is that you don't necessarily always have the best experience with like the filming of it, but then
Hmm.
you learn how to spin it for the PR, and so you become sort of like a retrospective, like I may have felt like extremely vulnerable and uncomfortable on set, but now I'm going to spin it that I am empowered. But I think in this case, because everyone was like working as a team, and I think also with the pandemic, it's such a vulnerable situation you're putting yourself in, period. It seemed like you had enough of a touchstone with everyone involved, whether it be the makeup artist, the costume designer, the intimacy coordinator, that you were able to hone in on your own self power and then allow them to empower you further, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was always asked first,
Yes.
like, what are you comfortable with this? What does this even look like for you? Like, what were you picturing in your head when you read this in the script?
Yeah.
Because obviously, even though Amy had a vision, she's not going to. I knew at no point that she would show something that I felt uncomfortable showing, or like I told her at one point, I was like, honestly, I don't care what you see as long as it looks beautiful.
Yes.
and she was like, yeah, well, of course I'm gonna make you look as beautiful as I possibly can in these
Yeah.
like vulnerable situations.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, especially with horror movies, it sometimes gets makes me feel uncomfortable, is that there's this sexuality that is often present and often used, obviously, for shaming
Mhm.
female characters. Like there's that trope that if you have sex in a horror movie you're going to die.
Yeah.
And but also just like oftentimes it just looks, there's something about the look of it that doesn't feel comfortable. It looks like ugly, or like, or it just looks fake. There's
Yeah.
also that. It just
Yeah.
looks like a doll, and then like blood is getting thrown at boobs, and like the boobs are bouncing everywhere, and it's just like, why is this who is this for?
Yeah.
Right? And um, I
Yeah.
never felt that.
Yeah.
Even with blood on my boobs, I didn't feel that feel that way.
Yeah, it's a tough divide because like I've had to direct like an assault scene, and
Yeah.
like it was like it was like constantly I was like we were at a point in the process where I had to like constantly like find a way to kind of physically check in,
Hmm.
and then mentally check in, and then it's just kind of rip the band-aid off because ultimately you want to create that that first dip in the pool of water where it's going to be cold, but you just want to let them know there's a warm towel as soon as they jump out. And like
Yeah.
so it's good to know because I know that like it's not ever going to get easy, but the good news is, guys, April has done it and seen it, so she knows better, so she's not going to fall for any of your charlatan stuff. So if you want someone to just do shit and they're not she's not going to.
Hmm.
She knows better.
It's true. I do know better.
You know better.
And it took me a long time to know better. Like it's definitely, unfortunately, through a lot of trial and error. And
Yeah.
I think that something that's really interesting about actors as a species is that by and large we want to please.
Yes.
And by and large, as women and like femme presenting people, we want to please.
Yes.
And as young people, we want to please. And so like you layer all this stuff and you end up being in a position where you feel like you can't advocate for your own safety and comfort.
Yes.
And I had been in enough positions like that I felt like I didn't want to do that
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like I was done with like holding my breath.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be able to be present, which is like, you know, always the goal as an actor is to be present and to be in your body and to be listening and aware. But sometimes on like previous sets or like in previous, I did a lot of theater and like previous theater shows, I it takes you out.
Yeah.
You know, it completely takes you out because your actual self goes into a protective mode and then you can't do your job. And then who is it benefiting
No.
to not protect your actors? And watching Amy create this space where everyone felt so supported and safe, and there was so much joy and laughter, but also so much efficiency and skill. I was like, wait, I want to I want to do that.
Yes. Which is a perfect segue, April. Look at you directing.
Mhm.
To talk about like subscribe, which is currently what you are crowdfunding. And everybody, I'm going to put a link. Please throw some New Year's dollars, or if you want to put in the last couple days of the, the last year, get that in, because it is so pivotal to make projects, first of all, with someone with your viewpoint, because obviously you have a very vulnerable viewpoint. As an actor, we don't, honestly, nowadays we don't just get to turn off. Between
Mhm.
projects, we have this new pressure of social media, which is, maybe it's posting, maybe it's I hate the term curation, um aesthetic, um or
Brand building.
brand building, or what's my favorite is, oh yeah, uh is networking. It's like real. And then the thing that I find, that I think this film is going to hopefully touch on, is just the part where you get so sucked into this that you focus on other people's journeys instead of yours. So,
Mhm.
do you want to talk about the origin of this project, and just kind of like what your goals are with it, and just, yeah, pitch it to the future investors listening.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the log line, we'll
Yeah.
start there.
Okay.
Um, chronically online Ren, that's the character I'm playing, starts to lose her grip on reality when the influencer she's obsessed with starts appearing in her real life. And I first wrote this script many years ago, like 6-ish years ago when
Mhm.
I was still in college. And um, it was following a really like dark time for me.
Yeah.
My freshman year of college, I was extremely mentally ill. I wasn't sleeping. I was like having insomnia for 3 or 4 days at a time. I was having multiple panic attacks a day. I was not eating. And all of this culminated in like not being able to interact with other human beings,
Yeah.
basically. And really questioning my own like personhood and why I was doing anything. Obviously, like if you're not eating and you're not sleeping, everything is going to feel terrible.
Yeah.
And it did. And the only way that I like kept going really was just by being sucked into my phone all the time, basically.
Yeah.
Um, it was like the best form of escapism. I could look at all my friends doing things and I didn't have to do anything. And I could read about all these diets and meals and what I eat in a day and my exercise routine and just copy that as like the blueprint for how to live my life because I
Yeah.
was so desperate for something in my life to change.
Yeah.
And I was really young. I was like 19, you know, I didn't know how to help myself, but the internet knew what I needed to do.
Mhm.
And it was drink a bunch of green smoothies and, you know, do crunches all the time and, you know, wear a certain type of clothing and makeup and bleach my hair and be this thing
Yeah.
that represented happiness. And I feel like um, in like the 2016 era. That was like peak Instagram,
Yeah.
and peak YouTube for a lot of these influencers. Like it wasn't, we didn't have TikTok, which is a whole
Whole other.
other
Yeah.
beast. So it was very like presenting perfection.
Yes.
Whereas I think that TikTok is very into like presenting vulnerability or like reality,
Yeah.
which is just so unhinged because
Yeah.
obviously it's still the phone, it's still the internet, like it's still fake, but like
So
we're
curious.
trying to, yeah, and we're still eating it up as if we're just talking to our friends, right? So I wrote this script in a class, probably like, screenwriting 101 or something like that. And it was like 7 pages, and I put it on a flash drive and like kind of forgot about it after the class for a few years,
Mhm.
you know, graduated college, wrote a bunch of other things, got to do some acting. And then during the pandemic, I was back in that same place.
Yeah.
I was, my sleeping schedule was messed up. My eating schedule was messed up. I wasn't seeing anyone except for my wonderful partner, but like I wasn't socializing.
Yeah.
And I started to feel that like erasure of self. Um, and all of these old mental illnesses like kind of snuck back up on me, which was really was so much more discouraging because I thought
You
I
thought
had moved past them.
yeah.
I was like, I'm an adult now. I'm no longer that like, bleached blonde 19-year-old. Like I'm more myself. So obviously this can never hurt me again. Uh, but it's just not true.
No.
And that discouragement drove me to be like, I have to at least make something out of this.
Yes.
There has to be something good that can come out of this feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I started writing new drafts of this script and just like completely expanding on it. I mean, there's probably like nothing from the original script left in there, except for like core ideas. And Ren struggles with all the things that I struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't get out of it as I was lucky to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that a lot of people in my age group really struggle with that idea that like there are some things that you're just gonna have to like keep fighting.
Yeah.
And there are some things that like will get better and will get worse and will get better again. But I think that the thing with social media is that it convinces you that who you are in this moment is like needs to always be the best.
Yeah.
Needs to always be the best version of you. And whoever you are right now is who you're gonna be maybe forever.
Yeah.
If you can't like revamp your whole life, it never lets us rest.
Yeah.
The comparisons are always there. So I wrote a whole bunch of like 16 drafts, and I sent it to some of my friends, and they were like, "Oh, you should make this actually. Like this is actually pretty good." And I was like, "Really?" um and as like we all got vaccinated and I started seeing more people, I kind of put it on the back burner again because it felt embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
It was very intimate and very of myself, and I was kind of like, oh, maybe I actually shouldn't make art about this. Like
Yeah.
maybe this is not what people want to connect with,
Mm-hmm.
because Ren makes some really bad decisions, just as I did during these different periods of my life. I do not and have never done the things that she does in the script. um,
But you've thought about it, and that's its
but
own.
I've thought about
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Uh, so I put it on the back burner. I was like, I'll just try to be an actor
Yeah.
again. And I got a lot of really amazing opportunities, and I feel very grateful over the past year. But again, when I saw Amy doing this amazing job on Mukbang, I was like,
Yes.
I want to, wait, but I want to tell my story
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I think that people maybe would connect to it. And I think
Yeah.
that they would understand like these like dark impulses that being chronically online brings out. Like, I realized the link between me getting better and me spending less time on my phone was like, it's a circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's the Venn diagram is a circle.
Yes.
And we already know that, right? Like there's a million documentaries about how it's literally changing the shape of our brains, how it's messing up our dopamine receptors and serotonin reuptake and all of this stuff. Like our brain chemistry is being altered permanently by this thing.
Yeah.
And that is horrifying. But I almost feel like a lot of the conversation around it is not coming from the right generation. It, you
Yeah.
know, it's
Well,
like people whose brains are already settled.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the thing is that like different generations have settled into social media at different rates, and like
Hmm.
your generation has and my generation have very much like grown in it and seen the trends and how things change. Like when you were talking about the kind of the perfection, the always presenting perfection, I feel like some of that is starting to shift to false vulnerability. Like
Yeah.
you'll like I feel like more and more, and again, if you or anyone listening does this, like it's fine. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that there's a certain thing that we do socially where we unconsciously overshare with perfection. So like I see people will post like a really they'll say like a makeup free selfie, but they look like fucking glamorous because the lighting is perfect. And then they'll be like,
Hmm.
rough day, like I have a case of the Mondays, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at it like, you know, I'm bipolar, and so like I just love the way that that phrase has just become like a its own thing, and it's actually like a medical diagnosis, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And I'm,
Yeah.
oh, you're having a case of the Mondays? During the pandemic, I shot a podcast episode every day for like a month because I like couldn't be alone, even with
Hmm.
like because I needed that stimulation and I didn't sleep. Like that's a thing. But it's
Yeah.
but it's like I don't talk about that, and I think that it's going to be interesting that you've created a story that sort of physically presents this like personification of like, okay, well, you've been comparing yourself. She's,
Yeah.
this is here. Like, deal with
Yeah. Exactly. Like the idea. I was really I mean, I guess she has like millions of followers, so I guess I can say her name. I was really obsessed with this influencer named Alexis Ren. Do
it.
you
Yes.
know who she is?
Yes, I know who she is.
Yeah.
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 Is that where the name came from?
Yeah.
I love that because
Hmm.
I feel like during the pandemic or pre-pandemic, sorry, pre-pandemic, because there was a pre-pandemic. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like there were like 30 like Alexis Ren like fan accounts that would like
Yeah.
that would just like pop up and like or follow or something, and I'd be like, I'm good. Like I'm good.
Please don't show me this. I mean, she literally looks like a goddess,
Yeah.
right? Like, I knew her since my Tumblr days. Tumblr was a big thing for me. And I just was so obsessed with her. And, you know, it took me a little bit to realize that I just thought she was hot.
Yeah. Yeah. That.
There like did I want to be her? Yes. Did I also want to kiss her? Yes.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand like the root of my obsession for a few years.
Yeah.
And like why I felt so bad
Yeah.
about it. There's all this like extra shame and guilt. Not only was I comparing myself to her, but I was like, what if we were friends? Like, I
Yeah.
wonder if she would like me if she met me in real life. Just like unhinged parasocial thoughts. Um, because I was attracted to her and like didn't have the language at that time to just articulate that.
Yeah.
Um, and so Ren kind of has a similar struggle in that like she kind of doesn't know
Yeah.
what the root of her obsession is. And that was another, I got some feedback from some queer people in my life that read the script at a certain point who were like, why are you telling this story? Like, this is like the predatory lesbian trope. And I'm like, no, it's not. First of all, because I'm a queer woman and I'm writing it just about my own experiences. And, but I think that people are scared of having like an anti-hero that is also queer.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because by the way, I can send them a whole list of films that do the same thing that are like Mulholland Drive, like it's there's a precedence for it, and as
Mm-hmm.
someone who also identifies as queer, and like I'm more femme presenting, and I'm married to a straight man. It's an interesting thing because I think that it's less about those tropes and more about, okay, why do they exist? Because we live in a
Mm-hmm.
patriarchal society that like presents um lesbianism or bisexuality as a either objectification, like, ooh, let me see two girls kiss, or um over sexualization, or they're insane, like
Yeah.
you're insane. So I think it's valid what you're doing as someone who's queer and who's had serious relationships with women and dealt with like how they internalize shame. um it's important because really what you're saying is like the way the society is presented and the way that we favor objectifying the females in general,
Mm-hmm.
let alone feminine presenting, or non-binary. It says more about that than it does about you telling the story, because
Right.
it's gonna be that way, right? If you don't know what to do with your feelings, like, I mean,
Yeah.
I was like so much more like warm fuzzy feelings about girls before I even like gave a guy a chance. But I knew I had to act like I had to like be like, okay, who do you have a crush on? Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who looks like a woman.
Why is Jonathan Taylor Thomas like every queer woman's like first crush? It's because he looked like a little lesbian.
Exactly. So like, that was
Mm-hmm.
my first male crush, and then I got a
Yeah.
beard. I dated a guy, and then I like was like, I actually I kind of like this too, I guess. Um, so I think it's valid, and I'm very excited for people to see this come together, because that's another thing that's important is I think, yes, you're crowdfunding this, but it's also you're documenting the process of what it is to make your own story, which galvanizes others to make their own stories. So if those people don't want you to tell this queer story, then what story do they want to tell, right?
Yeah, they should tell their own.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes we get really caught up in having like good representation.
Yeah.
I just want truthful representation
Yeah.
from queer people. I just want queer people to make queer media
Yeah.
about themselves. And I think that that's going to be the truest thing to representation
Yeah.
that we get.
Yes.
And I mean, I love a gay rom-com. I
Yeah.
love, everything on every spectrum. I love like bodies, bodies, bodies. I love like a fun, two sapphic final girls.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But I love that we are getting a wide variety. And because obviously queer people are just people and they have, you know, the same variety as straight people.
Yeah. We
So we should just tell all of our stories.
Yes.
I'm just rooting for whoever's queer, you know?
Yeah.
And those are the stories I want to see. And so like for me, almost like every character that I play, it's gonna be a little gay.
Oh yeah.
Even,
Oh yeah.
like just because I'm playing her. I actually I did this commercial one time. It was like an ice cream commercial, and it was supposed to be these two sisters, but we didn't really look anything alike. And we're supposed to be having like this cute moment eating ice cream like on the roof, and I posted it to my Instagram, and all the comments were like,
Gay.
something LGBT just happened to me. Oh my god, I can't believe they made a queer commercial. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It just
It just
I
happened.
just certain something, I guess.
It's all right, you know? I mean, I think it's just lean into it because to be honest, like what I'm realizing with like queer identity in the entertainment industry is like you will be told by people who have never had same-sex relations how one with same-sex relations should act and how they should look.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
do not let go of that fire of being like, yeah, okay, but like naturally I will make ice cream gay. I mean, ice cream's already gay, but like
It is.
it's so gay. But no, that's wonderful. And you know, you also got to be in something else that's like gay-ish. A
Hmm.
Lifetime movie. You got to be in
Oh yeah.
Hider
Camp.
It's Hider in the House, right? I know there was like another title.
Hider in my house. Yeah, it was called something else for the whole time
Yeah,
that I was working on it, and then it came out, and I was like, oh,
it does
new
that.
title.
It
Yeah,
They
Lifetime
do
does that
that.
a
They
lot.
do that. Clay and I started subscribing to the Lifetime Movie Club during the pandemic because we watched all the apocalyptic films to like deal with the plague and all that. And then we were like,
Hmm.
I just want to yell at white people on the screen. Like, what can I do? Where can I do that? And then it was Lifetime. Lifetime. It was like,
Yeah.
let me watch these really privileged white people make really bad choices, especially around realty. Like,
Yeah. Why is there so much real estate
because
in Lifetime movies? I
you know
don't know.
what? I think what happens is that a lot of actors also do real estate agency stuff to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, oh, I have access to this property. And like, let's make up some bullshit about somebody living in the house. Like,
Yeah.
let's do it. Like, it's great. But what was that? What was that like? What was it like to be in a Lifetime movie?
Well, it was kind of wild because I I filmed it at the end of 2021,
Yeah.
and I had spent like all of 2021 being like, all right, like things are filming again, time to get out there, and just like auditioning a ton and getting like nothing.
Yeah.
Um and again, like, had college, had a little bit of time where I was auditioning, and then the pandemic, and then this. So I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe people don't want me in things. Even though it had only been technically like a year that I
Yeah.
had been actively auditioning, but it had been like 2.5 years
The
since I had.
longest 2.5 years.
Right. And so I was like, oh my God, I need a win. I need like some win. And I got this tape like the day before I flew to see my family for Thanksgiving, and I was like, okay, yeah, like I don't even know what this is for. Like I didn't even know it was for a Lifetime movie, I think. And I was like, okay, yeah, she's like a lawyer. The role was written for like a 35-year-old. Like there's no way I'm getting this.
Yeah.
But I will just try my best. And I like filmed it. I probably didn't even memorize it, to be honest. I probably had the paper like just out of sight, like, yeah, these
Yeah.
are the lines. And I sent it off, and I did not think about it at all. So my family hung out for that week, and then on like as we were driving back to the airport to come back to New York, I got the email that was like, you booked this. No callback, no interview, just like you booked this. And I was like, what?
What?
Oh my God. And it was filming in Florida, which is where my parents live.
Yeah.
but I had to like go back to New York and get my things and then fly back immediately because it was filming in 3 days.
Jesus. What?
So the turnaround time was really fast. I got to Florida. It was this whole thing because I had said I could work locally there. And so I was like, oh yeah, let me just book an Airbnb real quick and like make no money. But
Yeah.
it was a cool experience because I had never been on like a professional feature film
Yeah.
set before. And it was like a supporting role, but like I was there every day. I filmed like 15 out of 15 days and it was very intense and I met some really wonderful people and I just got to watch the machine work,
Mhm.
like the film machine actually working in real time. And it was also just fun to lean into something where the genre is a little campy. Like if you're overacting a little bit, like
It's okay.
that's okay. It's the genre. So it felt for me a very gentle entry into actually getting to do feature films. Like I didn't feel the pressure that I might have felt if it was this really big prestige thing that everyone was going to see. I was like, okay, this is like a little way I can dip my toe in.
Mhm.
And it was great. I had a good time. I've never watched it though because
Enjoy
I'm
it.
afraid yeah, I'm afraid that I'm gonna like not be proud of it,
No.
and that I've like grown so much past it. So I've literally have never watched it.
Well, at some point, we'll just have to do a watch party because I enjoyed it. I mean, I love those
Oh,
movies
good.
because I don't know, it's like a gift to get to kind of turn your brain off and be like, oh, really?
Hmm.
You miscommunicated with the real estate agent and now you're living in a haunted, like, this is great. Like,
Haunted house.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, whatever. Well, April, it has been so lovely talking to you. I'm gonna share the Seed and Spark. Everyone, please
Hmm.
donate. And is there anywhere that they can find you? Like, what's your social media? I'll put the links as well.
Yeah. My Instagram is April Consalo, and that's basically the only social media I have right now.
Good,
So it's great.
good,
Yeah.
because you're gonna tell a story about it. Well, thank you so much,
Hmm.
and see you guys in the next episode.